Welcome back to Amplify Your Garden as the podcast. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the plants that play nice in the garden next to each other and the ones that don't play nice. So maybe some companion planting or companion plants and some anti-companion plants.
Yeah.
So there are certain plants that like to be next to each other. They're buddies, and some are not buddies.
They don't get along very well.
Yeah, they compete with each other. They're arch nemesis. However you want to look at it. So let's start with the ones that do play nice together. And I always group them together in my mind. So when I think of tomatoes, tomatoes go well with other salsa ingredients, or even think of Italian dishes. So
like herbs and that kind of stuff.
So herbs and onions and peppers, they go well together with those.
Yeah.
But also things like marigolds. We have marigolds all around ours,
right.
And they go well with each other. But the marigolds also help protect the tomatoes a little bit. Green beans are another one that do well with tomatoes. I'm trying to think of some other ones some other groupings.
Yeah, I know. Like here at the lab, we have carrots and radishes and onions all grouped together.
Yep.
And they're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
So the onions are looking good. The radishes we took those all out, and those looked good. Carrots are looking good. So.
Yeah. And that's another. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another group. So those are root crops, and they all do well. And the thing with root crops is you want to make sure that you don't put something that is going to compete with those.
Right.
So like carrots and radishes and onions, they don't compete well because the whole fruit is in the whole crop that you're going to eat is in the soil, but then the leaves they don't bush out like a tomato does.
Right. It's just all underground.
Right. So you want to make sure with those you're not planting something that's going to be a heavy feeder or compete with those. So those root crops,
that's good to know.
Root crops really go well together.
Yeah.
Another one that we did out here as well is we planted sweet corn next to our cucumbers. So they go well together, and actually the cucumbers might actually vine up the corn plants, which would be good support for them. But that goes for anything in the cucurbit family, really. So think of your cucumbers, your squash, zucchini, pumpkins, your butternut squash, even things like watermelon and cantaloupe as well. Those I always tend to forget. Those two are in that family. And then I guess we did this too outside in our garden, is the leafy greens with the brassicas. So we have some lettuce growing, and then once we pull the radishes off, we put in kohlrabi.
Yep.
So I forgot for a second.
Which is another underground grower.
Yeah. So it's good to think about, kind of the families. So you want to break up the crop families, so that way you're not having the same pests, but you also want to break up the nutrient needs and how well they compete. If you put a tomato right next to a carrot, it
may not do very well.
Right. So you just want to make sure that, and that goes along with spacing too.
If your rows are far enough apart, you probably aren't going to have an issue. But if you're tight with your area, it's something to think about, to space everything out.
Yeah, I'm terrible. Well, I'm terrible at spacing.
Me too. I've never really thought about companion planting in my 3 years of gardening. I just plant 6 inches apart, and then move on to the next plant and do all those. And but I feel like every year it just so happens that it goes. I don't know. I always plant the kohlrabi right on the first row, because then it's like the most protected by the marigolds, because that's what the rabbits like the most. And then it goes peppers, and then like everything else is just thrown in. But this is definitely really useful, and I think it's a stepping stone in your gardening.
It is. So that brings up an interesting point, because when I plant my garden, I start cool season, and then I work my way over to the warm season. So this year I started on the south side, and I planted all my cool season stuff, and then about halfway through, you can see an easy divide of all the warm season stuff.
Yeah.
And then next year I'll start on the north side with the cool season, and I'll go.
So you'll just flip-flop them.
I'll just flip-flop them, more or less. And that helps with nutrient depletion and pest pressure. Now my rabbits, they're going to find their way around no matter what I do.
But at least the nutrients in the soil can kind of get balanced out every year, and it's
I'm not putting the same stress on the same areas.
Yeah.
So that's something else to think about. And this goes back to, planning your garden and thinking ahead a little bit of where you want to put what and how much you need to put.
I also think this helps. I mean, obviously with planning, like you just mentioned, but like knowing what you want to grow.
Right.
Like when you sit and plan it out and you know what goes good next to each other.
Right.
Maybe you don't have the room to put, I don't know, what's an example we said, like a tomato next to a potato because they will counterbalance and they won't do well together. Right. So maybe you just don't plant tomatoes that year or potatoes that year.
Right.
So I think it's a good way to also kind of maybe nix some of the things that you wanted to grow, but it won't, it won't do well.
But you can put that in your rotation too.
Yeah, so maybe like the following year. Yeah.
And I think that goes back to, when we talked about being a master gardener. So you don't have to grow everything every single year. Your garden needs to work for you. And if you have a certain pest or, something going on and you have to pick and choose, that goes to, thinking about your garden, planning out your garden and making it work for you and doing things that will increase the likelihood of having success.
Right. And I think it goes back to being a master gardener, but I think being a master gardener honestly just is through experience.
Yeah.
And I think this is just one of those things that with experience of the years before and what you learn from this show or this video or somebody else in your life.
Right.
Yeah, like it's just honestly I feel like the majority of like tips and tricks that you learn are just through experience and trial and error.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think even watching this video about companion planting, I would have never thought that, let's plant like the cucumbers and zucchinis and all that together. I would do that because they're the same type of plant, but I would have never thought about the nutrition levels of the soil and stuff. So I think it's all about trial and error for sure.
And learning what works. Let's go into, so we touched briefly on the plants that like each other. Let's go into some that don't like each other together.
They don't play nice.
And if it's okay with you, I'll jump into a little bit of an agronomy lesson. So green beans and onions do not fare well next to each other.
Gotcha.
And the reason being is because, green beans are a legume. And what that means is they can fix their own nitrogen from the air. And to do that, they need an enzyme called urease in the soil for the roots to be able to take in that urease, and then the leaves pull in the nitrogen from the air. And then there's a process that happens within the plant that allows the green bean to make its own nitrogen.
Okay.
So it needs that urease in the soil. However, onions release a gas that inhibits that urease enzyme from getting to the green bean. Okay. So if it doesn't have that urease,
it's not going to produce the nitrogen.
It can't fix its own nitrogen. Right. So that's pretty interesting, and that's a little bit of a agronomy chemistry lesson there. But that's something else that, as you go in your gardening journey, you'll start to pick up and learn how those plants interact with one another and the processes that happen. So it's something good to keep in mind.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, it could be as simple as, my tomatoes are planted next to my potatoes this year, and neither of them did very well. Yeah. I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah. And I'm glad you bring that one up, because tomatoes and potatoes are in the same family. So they're in the nightshade family, so they attract the same pests, and they're both heavy feeders, so they need a lot of...
But one's underground and one's...
Right. But you think about a potato, if you look at potato leaves that's on top, they look similar to a tomato.
That's very true. Yeah. I would have never guessed they were in the same family.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that...
Because it's a starch and
and one grows, it's a root vegetable and
that's
more
crazy.
Of a fruit.
Yeah.
But if you just pay attention to, noticing some of those similarities, you'll start to, it's pretty easy to pick out which ones belong together. Like if you look at a pumpkin and a watermelon, those leaves are very similar.
Yeah. Honestly, all of them, like until it starts producing fruit, I can't tell which is my zucchini, squash, cantaloupe.
Yeah. Well, even the other day we were out there and I was like, what is this? And I pulled a leaf off and it smelled like a pumpkin. And I'm like, well, I don't know if it's a pumpkin, if it's a zucchini, if it's a summer squash, because it's all
they're all very
the
similar.
same.
Yeah.
Zucchini, by the way, that's what it is. I asked Luke, and he's like, those are zucchini. And I was like, got it.
That's why you label.
Yes, that's why you label. Mark your stuff, because you might not know what it is until the fruit starts coming.
Right.
And then some more heavy feeders. So sweet corn is another heavy feeder, and then really any brassica. So think of like your broccoli, cabbage. Those are all pretty heavy feeders. So you want to keep your heavy feeders kind of separated from each other. So your tomatoes, your sweet corn, your brassicas, you want to space those out a little bit.
How does that work within itself? So can I plant all my broccoli together? It shouldn't cause issues, or is it more so like maybe plant your broccoli here, cauliflower here?
For ease of things, I plant them all in a row. But what you wouldn't want to do is plant all your broccoli here, all your sweet corn here. Like that's a very concentrated area. So maybe,
it's not that you can't plant broccoli next to broccoli. It's that you just want to be cautious of planting a row of broccoli, a row of cauliflower, a row of sweet corn, a row. Gotcha.
Like you don't want to have all your heavy feeders or your big eaters all right next to each other, because you're making that nutrient deficiency or that depletion area so much bigger. If you can space that out, now sometimes you can't.
Right.
But if you can space that out, that is better, and you might not have to fertilize as often. So you could plant all those next to each other. You just have to know how
to prep it for the next year.
Yeah, or even in season if you have to fertilize
the plants
itself a little bit.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But things just to kind of chew on and think about as you go through, and you'll be able to see it, as you go through your gardening journey year after year. And there might be some spots of your garden that just don't produce certain things as well as others. There's a spot in my garden where I don't put onions because they don't do well. I can move them to the other side and they do just fine.
Yeah.
But it's little things like that, because even in a garden space, your soil can change so much. So I guess that's all the notes that I have. I guess along with companion planting is going back to the herbs and the marigolds. So putting things like that to help
space things out
and provide a little bit of diversity.
Yeah.
In your garden are also great ways to help it succeed.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's what we have for this week on Amplify Your Garden as a podcast, and we hope to see you next time.